they do that to like sea turtles?
Big shark.
It has a GPS
Oh,
on
they
it.
saw it here. Was it dead?
That's a killer whale. Killer whales have leg bones.
That's so cool.
They're embedded in the muscles in the back of the whale. But gosh, whales don't have legs, so why would they have leg bones?
It's an evolution.
Well, whales evolved from organisms that ran around on land and then took to the sea, and the leg bones got smaller and smaller. This is called a vestigial structure. It's kind of a structure that's disappearing and getting smaller and smaller, and will probably eventually be gone completely because it's of no use. And things that aren't useful tend to get smaller over time. Because if you're born with something that's not useful and it happens to be smaller, that's good for you. You don't have to expend energy feeding those cells and keeping them alive. And so things that aren't used very much tend to get smaller. Humans have lots of vestigial structures. Our appendix, our pinky toe, our tailbone. These are structures that used to exist in our ancestors but aren't of much use to us anymore and are disappearing. Yes?
Don't I think that whales like evolved from cows or something like that?
Yes, an animal that walked around on like a cow on the land.
Wait, what's with our pinky toe?
The pinky toe was a lot bigger in organisms that ran around in trees because it was used to grip. And walking upright on the ground, we don't need it as much anymore, so it's gotten smaller and smaller.
Will we keep our other toes though?
Mine doesn't.
The other toes seem to be more useful. Now, this chapter starts out talking about Darwin and his voyage. I'm sure you've heard of this guy before. He was a naturalist, a guy that rode around on a boat. And I thought I had his book here.
You do. It's right down
Up here?
the shelf on the left side.
Okay, here we go. This is it, The Origin of Species. I actually have a copy from 1870 right here. If you ever want to look through it, it was given to me by a friend of my mom's. And he wrote this book in 1850. This is like the 4th or 5th edition.
That's awesome.
But it explains the idea he had of how evolution works. Now, the idea of evolution has actually been around since the Greeks. Evolution just means change. And, if you dig up fossils and you look at them, the organisms look different than they do now. So there was this idea, maybe organisms change, which went against what the Catholic Church was saying, that God created all the living organisms and made them the way they are and that they don't change. And so it was kind of heresy to support evolution, but Darwin, who was actually studying to be a preacher, he went on this boat. He decided not to go with those studies, although he was a religious person as a young man. But he was a naturalist. He liked to make collections of insects and bugs and plants and things. And he was really good at it, had these really nice collections, and knew a lot about nature. So they hired him to ride on this boat that basically ran around the world here, mapping the continents. And you want to have a naturalist with you if you're on one of these boats, because the naturalist will tell you, don't eat those mushrooms, those are bad. You can eat these, this is good. And the naturalist will kind of help you out there, and so you don't have to carry as much food because your naturalist is helping you find food. And while he was going around, he would catalog and write about organisms. His most famous stop was in the Galapagos. And there's a bunch of kind of unique organisms in the Galapagos. And so while Darwin was doing his voyage, he started to look at how organisms differ in different places. Like the iguanas on the Galapagos Islands are different than the iguanas you find on the mainland of South America. They're only slightly different though. And what Darwin, after looking at these organisms, started to think was, somehow the iguanas got from the mainland of South America to the Galapagos, And they must have changed a little bit when they got to the Galapagos. And he noticed that the diet of these organisms was different. And so they must have changed to be able to eat the stuff that's on the islands, you see. And so that gave him the idea that evolution does happen. And which is correct, evolution happens in every organism. You can see evidence of change in every organism. From people to even alligators and crocodiles that haven't changed much but have changed some. All the way down to algae and fungus and bacteria. You can see change in everything. It's happening constantly. But it happens really slowly. So you can't see it in just a few minutes. You have to look back through fossils and such, and it becomes very evident. And so these are pictures of just some of the things, and you can read on page 273 some of the things that Darwin saw on his voyages. There's one of the iguanas. There's me with an iguana. I went to the Galapagos. Chilling out with some iguanas. They're looking at me. There was one swimming under the ocean.
Swim?
Yeah, the Galapagos have swimming iguanas. It's the only place in the world. And they look like the regular iguanas, but they can swim. And they have a little webbing on their feet. They've changed a little bit. Because the only food on this island is in the water. And so if you're an iguana stuck on this island, you're not eating well unless you're able to swim a little bit. And so all the ones that couldn't swim died out. And only the ones that were okay at swimming were able to survive, and they had kids. And the best swimmers of their kids got the most food and had the most kids. You can see how it progresses. After several million years, they're darn good swimmers.
How would they know that there was food in the water?
Because it doesn't only grow in the water, it grows a little bit up on land near the water where you get some splash. And so you can eat a little bit on the land, but if you can go down into the water a little further, you can get even more food, you see.
What do they eat?
And so it gets just a gradual progression. They eat seagrasses. Yeah, we studied this in marine bio. These are the islands of the Galapagos. There's a bunch of them. When I went there, we bounced around on a little boat from one island to the other. Every day you get on, you walk around on the island, and then you go back to the boat, and then you go to sleep, and the next day the boat will be at a different island. These islands are hours from one another by boat.
Is that far away?
Yeah, they're pretty far away.
Was it a big boat?
It was a big boat. Well, it's had about 50 passengers, maybe.
Which was your favorite island?
They were all probably. This is a cool island. This has a big volcano on it. At the end of the year, after the AP exam, I'll show you all my slides from the trip.
I think we should go on a field trip there.
There's
So could the iguanas like swim to South America if they wanted to?
no, it's too far.
Could you touch this?
But there has been evidence of iguanas and other organisms carried that far in storms and stuff, blown on, where material, either pieces of land or floating debris, carries these organisms long distances. So there is a way to move 500 miles through the ocean in a storm. It would be a wild ride. Yeah.
Are the beaches nice?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Pristine. Beautiful. So anyway, yeah, it's a good trip if you ever get to go. Sleeping with some- Oh, by the way, that's the last I saw of that hat. I think I left it there with him. Read 15.1, and I'll continue on evolution and natural selection next time.